CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.
Hello, my name is Masego Madzwamuse. I am the host of the Adoye podcast series, Season 2, that is part of our 2026 gathering, which is held in partnership with the Nawi Collective and the Center of African Philanthropy and Social Investment under the Adoye program. And we're bringing together a group of fabulous women, Pan-African feminists, 30 women who have come together for this writing retreat. And we are curating a space that recognizes writing as political work, storytelling as a site of healing, and community as essential to sustaining feminist thought and creativity on the continent. And through the podcast, you'll get to hear about the incredible work that the individuals who are part and who are participating in this year's retreat are involved in. Hello again. Welcome to the Adoye podcast series, Season 2. And for today's conversation, I am joined by Nombuso. I will not introduce her further than just her first name, because I'd like for her to introduce herself to us. Nombuso, would you care to share with the viewers and the listeners who you are and whose you are?
Whose I am. Thank you, Masego, for the invitation and to be part of this podcast. My name is Nombuso Mathibela. I always say that I share my name with my twin brother. We have the same name. My name is Nombuso, his name is Mbuso, which means we have a kingdom, or we are rulers, or Sinombuso Wenkosi, we have the kingdom of God.
Beautiful.
And it's just, so the names are quite gendered, feminine, masculine. So part of who I am is that I come into the world with someone else.
Beautiful.
And I navigate my life knowing that I'm not always alone, if that makes sense. Like coming into the world with the twin has completely shaped how I move around and how I define myself. And I think in many ways I do belong to that relationship. I belong a lot to my mother's family. Mathibela, the people who raised me, my grandmothers, my two grandmothers, my mother, and my mother's sister. Those are the people who I feel that in this world, I belong to them in accountable ways. And I also think I belong to my work. I really love what I do, and I feel quite blessed that the intersections between what I do and who I am blend and feed into each other in ways that don't feel like work. And I know it's quite terrible in a way. We've done a lot of work as feminists to define ourselves outside of what we do and who and the roles that we play. But I think this place of like doing artistic work is a place that also like is very generative for my life. It's so generative that to be able to do it in so many different capacities has been so wonderful. And I think that also that kind of defines who I think I belong to. I think I belong to the things that I do.
That is such a beautiful place to be, right? And you have gotten to a place that is a quest for many who wish they could find that place where what they do and who they are coexist and mirrors each other beautifully. But what is it that you do?
Yes.
What's the work?
I always say that I try to, it depends who I'm talking to, how I explain that. But for the purposes of this conversation, I'll try to explain it broadly. I understand myself as a cultural worker.
Yes.
And I use the term cultural worker to point to a particular time in the 70s in South Africa and in Botswana in particular, when an art movement called the Medu Art Ensemble sort of erupted. And it was a collective of artists, writers, visual artists, writers, musicians, community workers who are thinking through art practice, who understood themselves as people who work for culture, seeing the work that they do no different from the work of someone who's building a bridge.
Yes.
And there was the other movements that took place in Durban in the 70s of similar movements of artists, playwrights, who writers, theater practitioners who were understanding themselves as people who are working for culture in a particular kind of way. And I take a lot of my influence from those periods, that I see myself as someone who's working for culture, that my work, whether we then understand it as a researcher, as an archivist, which are the other terms that I use to make things a bit more definitive when I'm speaking to people. Whatever I do as a researcher, as a writer, as an essayist, as a jewelry maker, as a archivist working in archival practice, as a what else? I think maybe those are the kind of categories right now.
A multi-passionate, multi-talented,
yes,
layered.
Yeah. The point is really just working towards like understanding the cultural instincts that come out of this continent through these things.
Yeah, layered and anchored. That's how I would describe you.
Thank you.
I'm taken to. I mean, when you talk about yourself and you pull out one of the things being a cultural curator as a curator, takes me to what you treated us to this Sunday, which was music, storytelling, music history, really. It excites me to learn about the art movement work that you do that is anchored in the 70s. Because for the continent, that was an exciting time. Is the post-colonial era, the late 60s and much of the 70s. A lot of African countries come out of independence, and there's a rhythm and something that is happening around that time. Would you just give examples about the work that you are interrogating that is born in that era and what it lifts for us?
So one of the ongoing, I think it's now become something that started off as an inkling, but now it's kind of spreading out into my broader archival practice, is this idea of like looking at like generational work, looking at generations. And I think it was prompted by realizing that the 60s, 70s are a particular moment in history where there's this idea of revolution that's happening, that we are going to take over the colonial state, and then when we take over the colonial state, we are going to repair the past through this takeover, through the implementation of this new government, through the implementation of the politics of revolution. That's going to fix the things that have happened in the past. And then the 80s show us that that's not really the case for the most parts of the continent. Countries enter into structural adjustment programs, they enter into these neo-colonial states. And we realize that, oh no, so this revolutionary path is no longer possible. And what has now happened is that we see a resurgence of this idea of reparations, that we are realizing that the past is persisting in the present, and revolution as an idea is no longer going to solve the problems of the present or the future in ways that we thought they would. So I've been working on a project that looks at the reparations resurgence, but really trying to understand through a project, an interviews project, speaking to people who were part of the alternative liberation fronts and movements.
Yes.
Trying to understand people who were part of like community organizations, part of like any kind of alternative movement in the 60s and the 70s in particular. What were the things that were driving them to think that this is the course of change that needed to be taken? Because I think...
And this is alternative to
alternative to, like, for instance, the African National Congress.
Yeah.
Alternative to any kind of dominant liberation movement, alternative to SWAPO, alternative to Frelimo, to really understand what are the driving questions that made people feel that this is a way in which they want to organize their path to freedom. To understand that in order to kind of reconcile where I feel as someone who's not part of that generation, for me, revolution is embodied. It's not something that I know because I lived through it.
Yeah.
I know it as slightly conceptual from reading about it, embodied because I see it in the livelihoods and the mannerisms of people in my family and people around me.
Yeah.
So to make sense of that, and this is coming out of a project that has been titled Stubborn Memories.
Stubborn Memories.
Yeah. To really understand, to build a relationship, a generational conversation of how do you have a conversation with people who are now in their 70s and 80s and have a conversation that's generative, not a conversation that says, your generation failed us.
Yeah.
And we're here now because you didn't make a decision, you didn't take this decision or you didn't make this decision. But rather, what were the things that you believed about your situation at the time that made you make those kinds of decisions, i.e., how were you understanding what, like your reality at the time, and what can we learn from that, as we also try to understand our present to make decisions about what is really a future life that we are only ever going to experience in the present.
Yes.
So this project is titled like Stubborn Memories, where I'm really looking at sound, trying to build like an audio archive, trying to work on interviews, field recordings, and also see what's in the archives, in the written archives, documents, and bring that into the audio space. And it also includes like text, trying to understand like the ways of remembering that are not stored in the official archive.
Yes.
And a lot of this work is really also very much inspired by Bheki Peterson, who's now late and like carried a lot of students and really kind of pushed this idea of a Black public humanities.
Black public humanities, yeah.
Ways in which we think about scholarship and the lives of Black people and how they manifest themselves in ways that are not captured in formal knowledge spaces.
Yeah.
And I think at the core of it, it's a very feminist practice and a very feminist way of thinking about knowledge. So I'm trying to build this projects through text to kind of write about what is this idea of a stubborn memory?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What are the memories that persist in our lives, in our bodies?
Yeah. Can you give us an example? Because that's one of the things that you have highlighted is the difficulty in finding the information and the resources in formal archives, and you've had to go to other spaces to. What does it look like? Where are you going? What are the who are you having conversations with?
Let me give an example. One of the things that I'm actually writing about now in this retreat is this suitcase, this brown leather suitcase that my grandmother has in her house.
Potomente.
Yeah.
Potomente.
It has everything.
I can see it.
It has a title deed. It has unfinished documents that you're not quite sure what they mean. It has photographs of people you don't recognize, you don't know.
Yes.
But you kind of know them because they look like people you've seen.
Yes.
And some of the pictures are torn. Some of them have like, because it's film photographs, like there's kind of like this overlay, whether it's from the flash, there are like written documents of our family members that don't really make sense to you. There's a title deed, there's a dompas, other people's dompasses, there are death certificates in there. And I started this by having a conversation with my grandmother about the suitcase. Because I'm like, this is a particular kind of memory that is persisting in our family in this box. It's stubborn because it's just sitting there and everyone in the family knows something about it. So my grand can't tell you by herself what exactly is going on here. She can't finish the picture. She'll be like, oh, this, maybe if you talk to my cousin Untombi, Oshalem Gababa, they can tell you what this is. My uncle will come in and be like, oh no, this is where we were when we took this photo, and this person was here. This document, we got it from this person you were working for at this white person's house in 1985 when you bought the certificate. In fact, I know because you took me as a kid, and I remember this and that and that. So you need other people to fill in the information.
Yes.
And it's an embodied
It's the
practice.
community, collective memory.
It's collective memory. And I think that's where, for me, the idea of a stubborn memory sits from. And when Prof. Begizuza talks about it, it's like he talks about these things that sit underneath people's mattresses, the letters, the important messages or the important documents that sit under the mattress, or that like batch of money that no one is supposed to touch that's sitting at the top of a cupboard, that the elderly people in the family know that that belongs to this person who's going to at some point go and build a house in that particular space. So I'm trying to trace the existence of those items in people's homes. I started with my own family, and it's been a project where I go and speak to different families of people that I know. Like, why do you keep these particular things? What do they mean? Because you can't understand the document just by looking at it.
Yes.
You need to rely on people's voices, their facial expressions, where they're sitting there and they're like, I don't know what this is. The body language, the laughter that's in between, that you won't know because it's like an inside joke. And
unless you ask.
Yes. So how do we study, like, and understand our lives and develop a historical practice that takes that as serious intellectual work that is as important as a national museum and the records that sit written at a particular national archive or a particular national museum. It's the unofficial story, the unofficial memory of what we've been through.
And as you rightfully say, almost every household has it. And it is stubborn. My household had it when I was growing up. And even though I'm growing up and raising children in a digital era, I have a potomende with documents in it.
It persists.
It persists. But for listeners and viewers who are not South African, one of the documents you mentioned was dompas. Do you care to explain what that is? Because for many, they might not know what that is.
So a dompas is almost like think of it as a visa. South Africa, apartheid South Africa was understood as a country within many countries. So you had what they called Bantustans, and the Bantustans were the black peoples or the natives' homelands, which were their countries. Because the whole premise of apartheid, at least when the architects of apartheid, people like Verwoerd of the National Party, when they designed it, they said that it's separate but equal. So this idea of separate development, very similar to what happens in the United States of America, where there was a separation with this idea that each space that's built that is where you belong. So we had these Bantustans, and these Bantustans were divided based on fictitious ideas of tribal groups and a particular fictitious and dangerous idea of a nationalist ethnic group. So you had Bantustans for people who are Zulu speakers, Bantustans for people who are Venda speakers, and the different national languages of the natives. And for you to leave those areas and be allowed to be in what was corroded as white spaces, cities like Johannesburg, and city centers, even in spaces like cities that are big in South Africa now, like Durban, you had to have a document, and the document was called a dompas.
Yes.
And that dompas you needed to be signed by your employee. For you, that gives you permission to be in that area.
To be in urban spaces.
To be in urban spaces.
Yeah. And when you were explaining it at the in the retreat, we had a lot of participants say the history of our countries has something similar.
Yeah, very similar.
Something similar in
You
Kenya
see it in
with something similar.
all
Colonial spaces. Thank you for sharing that. But you also talk about the role that music has played in terms of music as memory, music transcending spaces, connecting generations, music as storytelling. Do you care to share that? I mean, I smile because there's so much that you do that excites me.
Thank you.
But music is yet another one, I think, that I guess pays homage to African forms of storytelling from our oral history.
Absolutely.
But there was something that you did on Sunday where many of us born in the 70s.
It's the best decade.
It's the best decade. And
decade
grew up in the
born
80s and in the 90s. We all sat there with our eyes closed because you took us back to the living rooms of our homes, to the soundtracks of what our lives have been. Please.
And yeah, again, for me, that experience is so embodied. It's embodied in the sense that I can't explain it. I just was drawn to that archive and to that songbook, to the 70s songbook, whether it's funk, whether it's the soul, whether it's like a particular kind of folk tradition that was taking place in the 70s or before that. And what has always been impressed in my heart is the ways in which music, even across the colonial architecture, not just South Africa alone, the colonial architecture, sound and music has been the one base where it's been very difficult to contain and control the idea that that oppressed people, Black people, Africans, know who they are. Because you can't contain song. Sure, you can ban it from you can create these laws that say you're not allowed to play indigenous instruments. You're not allowed to gather in groups. You're not allowed to do this and that and that. But we have a history that has been so clear where people have found fugitive ways of completely eroding that. And for me, sound has been probably the best way of really understanding what the past has actually meant for us. Because it's the one space where it's so inscribed, it is so raw, the joy is so clear, the tragedy is so clear, the pariah status is so obvious, but the fact that we know you're human beings is even more obvious, right? It's even stronger, and I think moments where people feel and understand and they can define their own humanness, that's in the music for me. And it's such a clear space. And as to why that is the case, I still don't know, right? I still don't know, but it's always been our language. It's been our language that just sits in how we listen to music, No one ever told me that when I hear a really captivating song, that I need to do this. When you closed your eyes. No one taught us that. When you hear something, you close your eyes or you bend over and you do this. It's just ingrained in you. It's learned behavior. It's a language that just transfers. You know it because you've seen it,
Yes.
and then you become it.
Yeah.
And that's how the language kind of translates.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
hard to capture that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I also appreciated is you also write and you speak about that which we've been silent about, and the music and the people that have been made invisible. Do you care to just lift some of that
Some
and
of
maybe
that,
give
yeah.
examples of a musician or two?
Quite a few. I was watching a Miriam Makeba, one of the documentaries done on her, and one of the musicians that came up, who I saw when she was younger then, and she just passed away, I think about a year or two ago, Sutu Arosi. There's not much we know about her. And when I say not much, I mean in a particular kind of mainstream sense of what an alternative music scene is. I do feel that people like Satima Bia Benjamin, who was a singer, jazz singer, composer, kind of to some extent lived in the shadow of her husband, Abdullah Ibrahim. As much as I don't want to kind of impose that language upon her, but it was quite clear for a long time that she took a back seat to raise their kids and allow Abdullah's career to take off. And I think there's a clear tradition of that happening. If you look at a lot of instrumentalists, like a lot of jazz instrumentalists, the most well-known, even in the new musicians, or even the contemporary jazz musicians now, the instrumentalists who dominate the jazz scene are men.
Yes.
Right. And if you are, and a lot of women who are in the jazz space, most of them are read as singers in a particular way, where singing is not seen as an instrumental practice.
Yes.
It's seen as something that's meant to color the works of pianists and saxophone players who are men.
Yeah.
You know, I also think someone like Nombuso Mathibela wasn't given the level of respect and pedigree that she deserved. Given the contributions that she made, literally creating an entire style of music, and was sidelined for a very long time. You know, and the praises came after her passing. And when the praises come after your passing, it becomes very difficult to unsee. Not to unsee, it becomes difficult to see what actually happened when that person was alive. Because their death becomes like almost the singular experience of this person that we have right now.
And there's focus on them in that moment, and it dies off.
And it dies off. I mean, Satima was brilliant because she started her own label, and she started producing and making her own music under her label, walking in the lines of other jazz singers like Betty Carter, who did the same thing, realizing her own sidelining.
It is such important work.
It's very important.
So, Nombuso, you're active in this space. You're at a number of conferences. You write already. You are in academia. What has it meant for you to come to this particular writers' retreat?
I couldn't have imagined to start my year in any other way, to be honest. I think I was saying earlier on that I almost have, it's like I found my voice again. It's been very difficult to stay inside a creative practice when you're also navigating the bureaucracy of being human every day, and the bureaucracy of having to participate in the world in all these different kinds of ways, and not having that moment of stillness and that moment of like figuring out the voice that you know has always been there. And I think that this writing retreat has given me capacity to sit with my own voice, outside the noise of, the urban city space, to connect with my writing without the pressure of productivity.
Yeah.
And I think there was a time in my writing life and practice where I had space for that. And that's when I made work that has sustained me for the last 2 years.
Yes.
I've reaped the benefits of that. Yeah. But after COVID, we were just all forced to return into a new world and find our feet in this new normal. That I've struggled to actually find that practice of figuring out my voice. I think writing is really about understanding the texture of your voice.
Yes.
Understanding the sense of your thoughts. How do they smell like? How do they sit on a page? When you look at what you've written, like, how does this make you feel? And I think I connected with that in this retreat, where I started to develop a language that isn't just technically sweet, right?
Yeah.
But it actually aligns with exactly what I'm feeling in my heart.
Yes.
And I think that's a combination of things. It's a combination of having time, but also being in a space that's curated specifically with that in mind, right? Like curated with care, curated with an understanding that we're not just here to write, but we're also here to kind of create the conditions for writing to happen.
Yes. And Nombuso, with that, we look forward to the work that comes out of this.
Thank you.
And if you're already doing brilliant work, one can only wonder what your next iterations are going to be. Thank you for joining us. And once again, I'm Masego Madzwamuse, and my guest is Nombuso, and this is the Adoye podcast series, season 2, that is part of, brought to you by Nawi Collective and CAPSI as part of the African Women's Writers Circle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was nice.
You've been listening to the CAPSI podcast series, Conversations on African Philanthropy.